Alright, so this is Cyte 9. He's our sniper Warframe, a concept I'm surprised we didn't already have. Uh, there may actually be a good reason for that, which I'll explain at several points for this video, but one thing I do want to preface is some of the stuff I'm going to mention with Cyte 9 is there's known issues and suspected but not fully known issues involving Cyte 9. If you are watching this farther into 2025 or even later, a lot of those may have been fixed. They may even have reworked some things. So if this is later on video, I'll try and put a pin comment or something if stuff does change. But I will essentially some of this may change. Rolling off right off the bat with his passive, weak point kills increases weak point critical chance. For things with heads, this generally means headshots. For other things, it means other shots. So this is fine. I do have a little bit of concern with D putting critical chance on everything. Like Nyx has critical chance on guns because enemies are confused now. Zephyr gets critical chance in the air. Frost gets critical chance when they're frozen. With an augment, it's like it works, but it's gets very one note. This though, Cyte is a sniper, so this makes all the sense in the world for him. It is a perfectly reasonable and solid passive to go with him. The one thing I will say for weak point kills, I'll show it off more during the Seek view, is they're not consistently available, and it's not just get good and aim scrub. It is they are not consistently available. So sometimes this just does nothing for you, and this bleeds into other parts of his kit that are going to require it as well. Moving kind of quickly on to Seek. Seek throws down an antenna, it shoots out a cone. You can modify the range, you can modify the duration, you cannot modify the angle. You can put down up to 3 of these antennas. Within the enemies who are affected by these antennas take additional weak point damage, and you get additional punch through. Only on the enemies though, like you have to be aiming at a marked enemy or you don't get that punch through in my testing. You cannot aim at an enemy, then scooch over and shoot a barrel next to him through a wall. So we'll bring in some dudes here. Not the corpus. Just to quickly show you. Throw one over here. So yeah, you can pretty much tell. Their heads will light up based on your first energy color. Their bodies will light up based on your second energy color. Make sure those are contrasting on Cyte 9 if you want to actually see the heads. Or make sure the second one's real dark if you don't care about seeing the bodies. One or both. You will see in the simulacrum here, when I wander behind them, their heads are no longer visible. That is because they cannot be hit with a weak point shot from behind like that, in the case these Grenier. This also applies to infested who put hands over their face or growing mushrooms out of their face. It applies to MOAs whose legs may be in the way from the side. This is what I mentioned with it not always being available. Sentients have it in like their mouths and behind their masks in the crystal on their heads. If you shoot the masks or the top of the mouth, nope, punch through doesn't matter. No weak point for you. The other thing you'll notice is you can see this guy here. I can't see his head because I'm behind him. If I go behind the wall, suddenly it shows me his head, but I still can't get a headshot on him. It's still those pathetic, ridiculously minor amounts of damage. So when you're if you're shooting guys through the wall and you just can't seem to get your headshot, it's because the game is essentially lying to you or bugged. And this does not count. Moving on to Resupply. Resupply is what I would actually call probably Cyte 9's most powerful ability, but also the one that doesn't really function within his intended kit. Resupply. Watch my ammo at the bottom there. I'll throw out some corrosive. Now I have corrosive ammo. This does include a forced elemental proc. You actually throw out 8. If you have a full team, you throw out 8 of these, but each person can only see 2 of them and pick them up. So don't worry about stealing other people's ammo. This is all mine, and my allies will have their own. Forced elemental procs can be very useful, obviously. You can just watch these guys' armor drag. However, the forced elemental proc does not occur if you do this. Which is Cyte's whole playstyle. This is most relevant if I were to, you know, say, hey, there's a lot of guys here. I want to crowd control them when I shoot the first one, right? Ain't nobody crowd controlled. Oh, I think he got a cold proc somehow. That's weird. He wasn't in the area, but... some of those ricochets might get them at best. So yeah, resupply is very good ability. Anyone who's seen me play Lavos in the various roulettes and so on that I do occasionally on Twitch knows all about the Valance transfer or whatever the hell it's called. It does basically the same thing. It's not a super good ability for Cyte, unless you're going to pop in with a machine gun and just run them that way. I could have put a cut in there, but we'll move right on to Evade. So Evade, this is the one that's going to be controversial. This is not a good ability. It's bugged to start with. Now that may be fixed, but just to give you a heads up. If you're using this in multiplayer and you think it's doing something, you're experiencing what is known as the placebo effect, because in multiplayer it runs for 10 seconds and then the extension, the invisibility doesn't extend, just the duration. It says it's still active, but it's not. So, this also has the problem with that I showed with the weak point hits. If you're shooting a guy from behind, it's not going to get a weak point kill ever. Things like that. It will on a corpus because their heads stick up, but yeah, all that kind of stuff as well. You get a very minimal amount of health per kill as on top of that, which if you're invisible, you shouldn't need health. The only thing that's going to hit you when you're actually invisible, is an explosion, which is probably just going to kill you outright, or trigger your shield gate. It's not going to chip damage your health. Because you'll notice Cyte here is not exactly extreme on the health here. He's right around Banshee, if not a little lower. So yeah, I'm not a big fan of Evade. I will show you Evade. I will show you the evasion. So yeah. So yeah, you go like this. You keep it going with his sniping, but by the same token, if you really want to do his sniping, you could also just sit back here and also be basically invisible. So, yeah. I'll show you in my actual build what I swap Evade out for. There's a couple different options I have for it, and we will talk about it then. Neutralize them. And neutralize them. Anyways. Yeah. Cyte 9's Exalted Sniper Rifle bullets ricochet off weak points, seek out energy by weak points. All fire lobs cold grenade that completely freezes enemies. That's kind of your panic crowd control move. Do not under any circumstances try and do what they're doing in this video here, where he's just standing on a street shooting guys and not even trying to turn invisible. That will get you immediately killed. Important note about ricochet is the ricochet is just do an automatic headshot. They will go through nullifier bubbles, to my experience. They will go through Arctic Xmas bubbles and other things like that. They don't actually have to cross the intervening distance, and they're not subject to that weak point hit problem, which is about the only thing he has that mitigates that hitting the weak point when someone's sticking their hands up sort of issue. Sticking that weak point issue. So the ricochets are probably your best bet at actually reliably getting those weak point kills, is try and find the one thing that does have a head you can shoot in a pile of things. If they're awkward ones, and get that headshot, and that will headshot the other ones. The other thing is, through walls, you will actually run into that Arctic Xmas and nullifiers blocking the weak point shots. Over here, we've got the neutralizer. Nothing too fancy here. If you don't have a prime version, just run a regular version. If you're trying to find these, they're in 1999 or Whispers in the Wall. Or no, these are in Ascension. Hush is necessary because you need him to be silent. There's a bug where he might not actually need this damage mod, which I'll explain when I get to his actual build. You could swap that out for Shivering Contagion would be one of my picks, because that will keep the cold procs. It will make the area they affect potentially a little wider and keep the cold field from the crowd grenades constantly reprocking. But right now there is a bug with his power strength, which I'll explain. it has me putting that in there. That said, that does also add punch through, so it's quite nice. Status damage is mostly for our hunter munitions, so it will also apply to the resupply rounds, if applicable. So yeah, neutralizer. Bonk. Not much to say about that. Aim for the head and may the saints look away, as someone once said. So on to my actual build. So everything I just showed you was Cyte with no build, other than what was on the neutralizer up against level 100s. If you don't want to deal with this rainbow splatter, range is your biggest go-to. That increases your cone size, increases the ricochet range on this. After that, you get probably duration, and then strength is kind of a optional. Having more strength will give you a little bit of better buff on these, but these are more about the force procs and not the actual buff. And then the strength will theoretically increase the damage of this as well. That said, this already has a huge ton of damage by itself. I did try it, despite my critiques of the weak points, I did lean into that build. So we've got Worthy Camaraderie up here. Power Drift is just giving us some extra strength. You don't have the Archon stuff, feel free to ditch that for the regular versions or the Prime versions if you have them. You could also go for the Overextended if you really want, because again, strength isn't super necessary on him. The one I do tend to keep up with almost say is most important, because these are only going to proc if you get the neutralizer to kill something with the elemental hit off resupply, which honestly doesn't happen that often. That said, Archon Vitality, if you get those ricochets or even you can't get the weak point hits, it will deal, and you're resupplying with heat ammo, it will deal that extra heat proc that can help you out a lot. So this is the one I would hard lock in of the Archon mods. Augur mods for his stats, that just gives him some shield gating, which he can definitely use if his evade isn't going completely to plan, or his invisibility. Precision intensifies, I've mentioned with the neutralizer. The precision intensify doesn't actually work on the neutralizer. So at some point they'll theoretically fix that, and then my damage will actually be increased by this. I'm leaving it in there right now because it isn't, but in the meantime, you may want to actually swap that out for Umbral Intensify or other mod of your choice for power strength. Over here we got Arcane Rage. On headshot, we get bonus damage to primary weapons. This, I'm not sure exactly how this sits in the damage equation, but it can turn like 2,000 into 20,000. So I think it's a final modifier for some reason, like faction damage, but don't quote me on that. I am not the master of the equations. I just look at the numbers on my screen. Arcane Crepuscular, when you're invisible, you get ability strength and final multiplier. I don't have too many of these yet, but you get them from 1999. Cyte does want to be invisible most of the time, even though his own ability is currently bugged and it doesn't really work. So that theoretically will help him out there. We got the neutralizer down here. I should have already discussed that. So just another quick look. Not going to worry about the Vesper or the Sarpa. I don't use them that often. My other thing is the Buzzlock. The Buzzlock is a very funny thing where your alternate fire sticks a dart marker essentially on target, and you get additional critical chance against them. And it does the curving bullets trick. Now, when you're shooting through walls, do try and still aim for them, because the curving bullets take a longer route and they can use up your punch through. That said, this can be an interesting way to deal with some of those guys. If you can clink them in the head and then they take cover, you can still angle and shoot around them. That silly tank boss, you can hit a weak point on top of it and kind of fire up into the air like a mortar. Just kind of a funny rifle I figured I'd pull out and use with him. It's one of my favorite gimmicks, if not the most actually useful. You can see we're running a fairly basic critical slash build on here. If you don't have galvanized stuff, look for the regular stuff, other than maybe regular aptitude is not very good. So if you don't have galvanized aptitude, come up with something else there. Vigilante Arminus would actually work you very well. Spawn some dudes in, so just so you can see this buzzlocked, silly buzzlock things. We'll do with heat. So yeah, the buzz lock, you'll ping, for instance, this heavy gunner in his head. You can see I've got 20 seconds of a buff, and you can do stuff like that, shoot around corners. It's very much a novelty. That extra critical chance can do some tricks, though. Or you can just, do it. It's full auto. It is not by definition of sniper rifle, so it does not get the full bonus of Cyte's abilities, despite that scope on it. So just be wary of that. Anyways, that's the build stuff. If you have found this informational, educational, and otherationals, feel free to throw down a likeational and a subscriptionational. I'm going to stop that now. And we will see you next time. I'm going to throw on some Steel Path gameplay on the end here too, for those who want to see things more in action as well. And we will... Oh, my helmet. I almost forgot that. A helmet quiver, because, Cyte just wants to sit here being invisible anyways. So yeah, you can just do that. Quiver can be stacked on top of each other so you can't lose duration. You'll notice these guys all know where Cyte is, even though I haven't done nothing. I'm pretty sure they're actually moving up based on his one. Like his one made them all immediately panic. Now you can see I'm in trouble. Temporarily, at least. Anyways, as I was mentioning, drop a like, a subscribe. We will see you in the next one, or hang out and watch the Steel Path gameplay where you can see the whole thing in action.
Supply cache flipped into self-destruct. It works, fewer fervor charges your pocket. But know this. Open that thing in the tech box.
Here, we'll do the toxin. Toxin goes through the tech rod shields. So yeah, this is a lot of how I end up playing Quincy. Okay, we got a acolyte. Oh, we got violence, which is like the worst acolyte for Quincy. I don't know where he went. There we go. There we go. Violence, if you're not aware, casts silence on you, and he seems to permanently show up when I'm trying to do Warframe videos. Fortunately, while he turns off your buffs, he does not turn off deployable stuff like the Quiver Bomb. If I had been using Evade, I would have been so toast in that situation. I'm not trying to hate on Evade either, it's just, by nature of its conditional requirements, basically the worst invisibility in the game, unless you really cannot manage energy. Is that, like, if I'm comparing it to, we'll say, Smoke Grenade, Ash can just throw another grenade.
Clearing them out. Bet it smells
Cyte cannot do that with Evade, because he gets put on a cooldown. Don't know why you weren't highlighted, but... Anyways, we already did the man. So yeah, you can do this, which looks kind of neat. There are also some areas of the map that you just cannot punch through, and they're kind of random, basically. It throws that guy in a position where he's basically useless. What is your weak point? It's not highlighting their weak point. They're definitely highlighted. I'm not sure why that guy wasn't getting tagged. So yeah, for all my shit talking, like, he's not unviable. Very few frames, if any, are. He's just very awkward and kludgy and very hard set into a playstyle that's definitively not one that's super effective in Warframe. Where's the dead guy? Revenant's painted with electric, which just makes him twitch all over the place.
Over and out, fam.
Anyways, that's that done.
Nice.
So yeah, if you did stick around for the little demo here, you can see he's not as direly as I might have actually, as I made him out to be, of course. I'm very good at accentuating the negatives sometimes. If you ever need something torn up, whether it's like good or not, I can definitely do it for you. But yeah, I don't think he's going to be topping anyone's lists after the initial hype wears off, unless they're really into a very creepy, slow sniper style, playing solo most of the time, because he's just too easily disrupted and kind of iffy against different factions. Anyways, just another reminder, drop a like and a subscribe if you haven't and you would care to. We will see you in the next one, and thanks for watching.